Welcome to the second instalment of my Nuzlocke series. I'm Tom, and I hope that you'll join me on my journey through Johto playing Pokemon Crystal. Having grown up with Gen 1, I remember being incredibly excited when Generation 2 was announced. The opportunity to go back to Kanto, as well as catching all new Pokemon that had never been seen before in the anime, was one that I could not pass up. Pokemon Crystal naturally was my favourite of the three, and so I decided that my second Nuzlocke would be playing Pokemon Crystal. I still want to keep things relatively simple regarding the Nuzlocke. The rules I'll be using are that the level cap is the next boss trainer's ace. There will be no healing items used in battle aside from held items. There will be only one encounter per route, and I will be using Species Claws and not catching evolved forms. I will be nicknaming every single Pokemon I catch. I will be playing on set mode to ensure that I cannot switch between Pokemon in battle. And permadeath, once again, means death. As soon as a Pokemon faints, into the box it goes, never to be seen again. We begin our adventure at home in our bedroom. Heading downstairs, we find Mum, who gives us our Pokegear and tells us that Professor Elm is waiting for us. We exit and we head straight for his lab. He asks a favour of us to visit a man on Route 30 called Mr. Pokemon. Elm also offers us our very first Pokemon for protection. I want to make this run as challenging as possible, and so I choose Leaf, the Chikorita, before heading back out of the lab. We arrive at Mr. Pokemon's house and find he has found an egg, which he hands to us before a familiar face and Professor Oak hands over a new updated Pokédex. We take it from him and soon find ourselves back outside on Route 30. The phone rings. Professor Elm is on the phone. He informs us that one of the other two Pokemon has been stolen from his desk. As we reach the eastern exit of Cherry Grove, we are confronted by another boy with long red hair. He challenges us to our first ever real battle and throws out a Cyndaquil. Despite Leaf's type disadvantage, he beats the fire starter with 4 tackles, and we continue our journey back to the lab. We re-enter Elm's lab and find him stood at his desk with a police officer. The officer asks for the boy's name and we tell him it is Silver. Once Elm has calmed down, he takes the Pokemon egg from us and sends us back on our way. On the way out, his aide gives us 5 Pokeballs, and so the Nuzlocke begins. Back on Route 29, we get our first wild encounter, a level 2 male Sentret. We catch him and we name him Tails. We then head on to the southern part of Route 46 and nearly trip over a wild Geodude. We catch her after exchanging plenty of tackles and we name her Geode. On Route 30, we find a wild Hoot Hoot that we name Nox. Further north on Route 31, we encounter a wild Bellsprout that we catch and call Vines, taking our party to 5. And we round off our little catching spree with a Zubat called Teeth from Dark Cave. A whole team before gym number 1, but some obvious issues against the flying type trainer. And so, upon reaching Violet City, I visit a house not far from the entrance and trade Vines away. This takes up my Violet City encounter, so no Togepi for me. However, I do get Rocky the Onyx in return. We head into the ruins of Alph and complete the Kabuto puzzle, allowing for unknowns to spawn. Unknown only knows Hidden Power, which becomes a typing that depends on the Unknown's shape, which is calculated by its IVs. We run into an Unknown J, whose Hidden Power is super effective against Nox. I test its typing by switching to Geode, and it's still super effective. An Ice type Hidden Power for the Flying Gym. Perfect. We catch J, and we head back to the city. While fighting my way to the leader, Geode accidentally levelled above the level cap of 10, and so we have to box her. Faulkner, the flying type trainer, leads with Pidgey, whose mud slaps are too much for Rocky, and its tackles leave Teeth close to fainting. So we send in Nox to take the first KO. Out comes Falkner's level 9 Pidgeotto, a Pokemon that should be entirely impossible. Its gusts deal decent damage to my entire party, and I begin to switch between Nox and Rocky to get rid of some of its PP, before Tails comes in to deal decent damage. Eventually, we switch in Jay, who takes the KO with a single HP Ice, 1 badge down. We head into Sprout Tower, and we catch a Ghastly named Ghoul, and receive the Flash HM from Sage Lee at the top. Next up is a trip down to Route 32, where we find and capture a Wooper called Axe, followed by a Rattata called Ratty in Union Cave. We reach the other side and enter Azalea Town. We head directly west into Ilex Forest and quickly add Quacks the Psyduck to the team, before meeting Kurt and helping him to clear Slowpoke's well of rockets. Upon returning, we catch Dopey the Slowpoke, and it's time for our second gym battle. Bugsy the Bug Specialist has a pretty nasty Scyther he likes to set up with, and so we lead with Nox. Nox makes quick work of Metapod before trying to growl down Scyther's attack. Peck doesn't do too much, so we switch to Geode and Fury Cutter and take the kill with a Rock Throw. Kakuna comes out last and gets a Poison off on a weak Poison Sting, but 1 Rock Throw later, the Cocoon is downed. We head back outside towards Ilex Forest, and are once again jumped by Silver. He leads with Ghastly, and Nox takes it down with a couple of well-placed pecks after waking up from sleep. Zubat comes next, and Bite doesn't do all too much to Geode, so Geode takes KO number 2. Cyndaquil is now evolved to Quilava, and Geode is low, so we bring in Dopey and hit a couple of quick water guns which knock out the stolen Pokemon, and take win number 2 against our rival. We collect the Headbutt TM in Ilex Forest and use it for our Route 33 encounter, and Apom we call Monk, before progressing back through Ilex Forest and onto Route 34. The Miltank in Goldenrod Gym is a real well-known run-ender, and so we pick up the egg from the daycare, and incredibly hatch a Tyrogue. Perfect. We name him Judo, and he soon evolves into Hitmontop. Before visiting the gym, we head north and catch an Abra on Route 35, before entering the National Park to enter the bug catching contest. We get another lucky encounter, Scissors the Scyther, and finish 3rd in the contest. We enter the Goldenrod Gym and we make our way to Whitney, the normal type trainer. She leads with Clefairy, who falls pretty quickly to a combination of Geode and Rocky, before the dreaded Miltank comes out. Rocky lowers its accuracy with Mud Slaps before we switch in Judo, whose Dizzy Punches do very little, and I begin to think we may be in a bit of trouble. I switch in Geode again on a Milk Drink and pray for a couple of high rolls on Magnitude, with Miltank healing every single time. Eventually, a Magnitude 7 breaks through and takes the KO. With one of the most dreaded early game Pokemon ever overcome, Whitney gives us the plain badge. We receive the Squirt Bottle from the flower shop and catch the Sudowoodo called Twiggy on Route 36, and then get a Pineco on Route 37 whilst using Headbutt called Forest. We head into Ecruteak and meet Usain in Burn Tower before running into Silver again. He leads with his Haunter and I lead with Rocky, who gets cursed. Geode comes in and takes the easy KO. Zubat next hits a Confuse Ray, so we switch Rocky back in, who takes down the bat. Magnemite comes next, and our newly evolved Quagsire tanks the Sonic Boom before eventually knocking Magnemite out. In comes Quilava, and I switch to Judo, who is healthy enough to Dizzy Punch this fire Pokemon down. We fall through a crack on the floor, getting taunted on the way down, and stumble across the legendary beasts Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, who quickly run away. We catch Gassy the Coffin and head outside. Next, it's off to Ecruteak Gym to face Morty, the Ghost-type leader. His Ghastly falls quickly to our newly evolved Geode. Gengar comes out and barely survives a Magnitude before putting Geode to sleep. A Dream Eater hits incredibly hard, so I switch to Rocky predicting a repeat. Hypnosis misses, and multiple Mud Slaps lower its accuracy, ensuring it cannot get another off before falling. one of Morty's haunters come in and uses Spite to lower Mudslap's PP before eventually falling. Another Mudslap and a rock throw finishes the battle. We make short work of the Camino girls and collect the Surf HM before catching a Magnemite called Magnet on Route 38 and coins the Meowth on Route 39, then head south to the lighthouse. We chat with Jasmine about the sick Ampharos and we head south to the water, catching a tentacle on the way to Siamwood. In the northern part of the island, we find Suicune hiding and are then challenged to a battle by Usain. Leaf leads and poisons Drowsy before being put to sleep, but Drowsy falls to poison damage after a strong headbutt from Axe. In comes Electrode, who misses its attack before falling to Geode's magnitude 10. And then out comes Haunter, who suffers exactly the same fate. We head on into the Siamwood gym, and we come face to face with Chuck, the fighting type leader. His lead Primeape is no match for Psy, the Kadabra, who we caught as an Abra north of Goldenrod, but Poliwrath tanks the Psy beam well before putting Psy to sleep. We switch in Leaf on a missed Dynamic Punch, and Strength falls short of the KO before a Razor Leaf finishes the battle. We leave the gym and we speak to Chuck's wife to receive the Fly HM, collect Shucky the Shuckle, and pick up the medicine for Amphi before returning to Olivine. We head back up the lighthouse and hand over the medicine. Leaf evolves to Meganium, and finally it's time to take on Jasmine. Magnemite falls to a 4x super effective Earthquake from Axe, as does the second, and Steelix survives the third and fourth. Jasmine heals with a Hyper Potion before Axe picks up the KO, following 2 more and a Surf. On Route 42, east of Ekritique, we headbutt the tree to find a wild Heracross. Scissors false swipes it down and we catch the beetle, calling it Lennon. We enter Mount Mortar and we find a wild Marrow called Beach Ball. After reaching Mahogany Town, we head north to Route 43 and we catch Venom the Venonat before reaching Lake of Rage. I'd purposely avoided Magikarp encounters to this point, and we pop a Super Repel to ensure that we encounter the shiny red Gyarados first. I'd had to rethink my entire team at this point due to the misaligned level cap, and Gyarados falls right inside it. A few false swipes leaves it low, and the first Ultra Ball catches the beast. We name him Dragoon, and we speak to Lance, who whisks off to the Rocket hideout. Inside, Teeth evolves into Crobat, and we make short work of the Rockets downstairs after catching Baller the Voltorb. Murkrow gives us the last password, and we face off against the Rocket Executive, winning with ease. Luckily, none of the Electrodes explode on us, meaning our new look team is still very much healthy. Lance gives us Whirlpool, and I decide to backtrack for some extra encounters, which include Kite the Mantine on Route 41. Inside the Mahogany Town gym we find Price and his ice types. He leads with Seal, and Ratty kills with Hyperfang. The same happens to his Dugong, and out comes Piloswine. Ratty uses Iron Tail, which does far less than I'd expected, and falls to a Blizzard. Our first death of the run, and of course, it had to be Ratty, who was so good in yellow. Out comes Dragoon, who washes away the Piloswine with a single Surf. We return to Goldenrod and visit the tower, which has been taken over by Team Rocket. Magnet makes incredibly short work of the exec's team, including a self-destructing Weezing, and he tells us that the director is hidden underground. We win another easy battle against Silver before finding the director and clearing the rest of the tower. Next is back to Mahogany Town and a trip east. We catch Raph the Poliwag on Route 44 and we reach Ice Path. Incredibly, we only encounter dupe spawns here and reach Blackthorn. Claire's gym is another very tough one, but we reach the Dragon Queen. Her lead Dragonair Thunderwaves J before a hidden power does just below half. Dragonair's Surf does surprisingly little as a second hidden power leaves it very low. Another Surf is followed by full paralysis, and so after some held berry recovery, we switch to Teeth to tank another Surf. Teeth finishes off the Dragonair with a Bite. Teeth then makes short work of the second with 2 flinches from bites before hitting a wing attack. The third comes out, and paralyses Teeth before a strong super effective ice beam leaves us below half. Another switch, this time to Baller for his debut, and it picks up the KO with a few sonic booms. Kingdra comes out, and this thing is an absolute menace. We bring out Dragoon on a weak Dragon Breath and hit back with a Dragon Rage. Kingdra uses Smokescreen, but soon falls, giving us the win against gym number 8. We enter the newly opened Dragon's Den and pass the trial before Claire finally gives us our badge. We find a wild Dratini while surfing and call it Uber. We then exit the den and take a quick call from Elm and head south to Route 45, catching a wild Gligar on the way. Once back in New Bark Town, we visit the Professor before heading east to take our very first steps into Kanto. We pick up Fish, the Goldeen, in Tojo Falls, flame the Ponyta on Route 27 and slash the Sandslash on Route 26 before heading into Victory Road to find Stones, the Rhyhorn. At the end of Victory Road we meet Silver once again, who switches straight out of Sneasel on Dopey and Golbat eats the Dynamic Punch. Dopey isn't doing nearly enough to the bat, so I bring in Wrath on a Leech Life before 2 Surfs get the KO. Magneton comes out and we switch to Uber, who gets paralysed after a Dragon Rage. Uber eventually takes it out, and Sneasel comes back in. I bring in Wrath to take the KO, and Haunter is sent out next. Wrath uses a couple of Surfs to take it down, before defeating Kadabra with a Surf and a crit Body Slam. Finally, it's Typhlosion, and it falls easily to 2 Surfs. Silver is defeated once again. We exit and find ourselves on Route 23 before taking on the Elite Four. Our team for the gauntlet will be Dragoon, the Gyarados, Judo, the Hitmontop, Axe, the Quagsire, Leaf, the Meganium, Flame, the Rapidash, and Teeth, the Crobat. In the first room, Will and his Psychic types await us. Dragoon bites Xatu hard and gets confused by a Confuse Ray. I consider switching out but decide against it, and of course Dragoon hits itself. Another bite on the next turn, however, soon takes KO number 1. Jinx comes out next and I switch to Flame, who OHKOs with a crit Fire Blast. Slowbro is next up and Flame stomps away before using Takedown to kill it. The rest of the battle is pretty simple, with Teeth biting down the second Xatu before Leaf KOs Executor with Strength. On to room 2 and next up is Koga, the former gym leader in Kanto. His Ariados and Fortress fall to flame pretty quickly, with Muck minimising after a Fire Blast. I switch into Axon and Sludge Bomb, who then hits an Earthquake through Muck's evasion boosts. Venomoth comes out to replace it and Toxic's Axe, before barely surviving an Earthquake. I switch in Dragoon on a Supersonic and he takes the KO with a Surf. Crobat comes out and uses Double Team, but a Surf and a couple of Dragon Rages wins us battle number 2. Halfway there. The next room houses Bruno and his fighting types. He leads with Hitmontop, who quickly falls to Teeth Swing Attack. The fighting type Onixes are back from Gen 1, and so a quick switch to Axe means I'm unaffected by Sandstorm, and Onix falls to Surf. Axe then faces off against Hitmonlee, who hits a double kick before falling to an Earthquake itself. Hitmonchan is next, and as with the yellow, I'm unsure if this thing knows the elemental punches, but I switch in Leaf on a Mach Punch. Razor Leaf hits hard, and Fire Punch does very little. The two exchange blows until Leaf comes out on top with a Strength. Machamp comes out, and I switch to Dragoon. Machamp misses Cross Chop, and Dragoon falls very low after a few blows. So out comes Teeth on a missed Rock Slide, and Machamp falls to a super effective Wing Attack. Battle number 4 is Karen, the Dark-type trainer. Her Umbreon is very tanky, and Teeth gets confused before switching to Leaf, who hits a Razor Leaf, misses a second due to Sand Attack, and also gets confused. I bring in Judo, who also misses due to Sand Attack accuracy drops. Dragoon comes in and finally takes the KO with Surf. Gengar comes out next and uses a Curse but gets hit by a hard bite. Dragoon is cursed and so I switch to Flame on a Destiny Bond. Thank Arceus I didn't attack. I switch into Axe on another Destiny Bond, and the battle becomes a bit cat and mouse, before I try to waste its Destiny Bond PP with headbutts. Axe gets paralysed by a lick, and once I'm certain Destiny Bond is no longer usable, in comes Teeth to use Confuse Ray. Gengar finally falls after hitting itself in confusion. Murkrow comes out and falls to 2 strong wing attacks before Houndoom makes an appearance. Dragoon switches in and eats a flamethrower with ease before surfing down the Devil Dog. Vileplume follows, and despite a stun spore, Teeth is able to make quick work of it while it petal dances. 4 down, 1 to go. Of course, the champion is Lance. It was only ever going to be one trainer in the final battle. His Dragonites are particularly nasty, but we both lead with our Gyarados. Dragoon hits his Gyarados with a 4 times effective Thunder and takes KO number 1. Dragonite comes in, and I guess it's the one that knows Thunder itself, and so I correctly predict it, bringing in the immune Axe. He's hit with a Twister and strikes back with an Ice Punch, which drops Dragonite into the yellow. I switch into Teeth on a Hyper Beam, and Dragonite falls soon after to a Bite. Another follows, and again, predicting moves, this time a Blizzard, I bring in Flame. Flame stomps the Dragonite and barely avoids 2 Thunder Waves before Lance gives up and hits a Twister. The 4th stomp barely takes the KO. Next is Aerodactyl, and so I bring Axe back in on a Rock Slide. Axe gets hit by an Ancient Power and surfs the fossil down deep into the red. Aerodactyl uses Hyper Beam, which Axe survives with just 31 HP before another surf takes it down. Lance's final Dragonite appears, and I decide Judo is the most expendable here. He's hit with a hard Hyper Beam and fires back with a Dizzy Punch which confuses. We stay in, and Dragonite hits itself. Another Dizzy Punch leaves Dragonite in the yellow, and we switch to Dragoon on a full restore. Dragoon uses Dragon Rage with Dragonite using Safeguard. A hard Thunder leaves Dragonite at half health, and it uses Outrage in return. Another Dragon Rage falls short of the KO, and Outrage leaves Dragoon with just 53 HP. Dragoon stays in, using another Dragon Rage, and down goes Lance's final Dragonite. In comes Charizard, and Dragoon falls agonisingly shy of the KO with a Surf, before Charizard fires back a Hyper Beam. And Dragoon survives on 2 HP. Another Surf washes the Fire Breather away, and we are the new champions of Johto. I've been umming and ahhing about what to do with Kanto in this run. The second half of the game is the reason as to why the Johto games were always my favourite generation growing up. But as I found, Nuzlocking it for the first time, the lack of linearity with level caps is a bit of a problem when playing through, due to the need to capture an entirely new party. I decided that the best way to get the best of both worlds was to continue playing in the Nuzlocke style, giving a brief overview of the journey. And so we return to New Barktown and visit Elm, who gives us a ticket for the ship from Olivine. We head directly there and board, only to be greeted by an old man looking for his granddaughter. We find her playing with the captain, and she returns to the old man. We exit the ship and find ourselves in Vermilion City. We instantly head north, and we catch a Drowsy called Auntie on Route 6 and a Jigglypuff called Puffball south of Cerulean. We defeat Surge with ease, and then on Route 7 find Knight the Houndour. Pup the Growlithe is next on Route 8, and we make short work of Erica. We catch Butter the Caterpie on Route 24, and Birdie the Pidgeotto on Route 25 north of Cerulean. Rumours are going around about a strange looking man in Cerulean who stole a machine part, and we find him in the gym before returning the missing part to the power plant. Misty Starmie causes only the second death of the run, with an Ice Beam on Butter, before Magnet finishes the Starfish after surviving a Surf on 14 HP. With 3 Kanto badges, we visit Fuchsia to battle Janine, and a combination of Rollout, her Ariados, and poison damage condemns Beach Ball to the graveyard, and Fish falls not long after to her wheezing due to poison damage and sludge bombs. Birdie comes in soon after to finish the battle off. We catch a Diglett in Diglett's cave, again called Diggy, rest in peace, a Spinarak on Route 2 called Spidey, and a Clefairy on Route 3 called Fairy. Brock falls with ease to Quacks the Golduck, and we then catch a Tangler called Noodles below Pallet Town. We surf across the Cinnabar and find Blaine in his new gym. Quacks once again makes short work of the gym leader, and it's off to face Blue in Viridian City's gym. Thankfully, the level cap finally balances out again, and Axe returns to crit Ice Punch the Pidgeot. A Surf finishes the job. Exeggutor comes out and we switch to Night as the tree uses Solar Beam, however it falls to a single crunch. Rhydon comes in and, predicting an earthquake, I switch to the immune Dragoon who OHKOs with a Surf. In comes Alakazam and again I predict the Psychic, bringing in Night who takes no damage and kills with a single crunch through a Reflect. Gyarados appears and so I switch out to Quacks on a Rain Dance. Confusion does very little, but neither does Hydro Pump. They trade blows with Gyarados using Hyper Beam, which leaves Quacks on 7 HP, so in comes Leaf, who misses a Poison Powder. Razor Leaf does tiny damage, and Leaf tanks a Hyper Beam well. I decide to stall out Hyper Beam PP by using Synthesis, and Blue uses a full restore. Poison Powder finally hits its target after a Rain Dance, and Leaf continues to chip away with Razor Leaf. It's at this point I had an idea. Once Gyarados uses another Hyper Beam, it's game over, as we switch to Dragoon on its recharge turn. Blue uses another full restore, but Dragoon hits a 4 times effective Thunder in the Rain, which leaves Gyarados with a tiny bit of HP, before Dragon Rage wins the mirror match. Out comes Arcanine, who falls to a single Surf. We head back to Saffron to take on Sabrina, whose Alakazam kills Rocky with a Psychic. I decide at this point, to ensure victory, I wanted to make a sacrifice. I send him Forest, and he uses self-destruct, taking down the spoon-bending creep. With 16 badges, we finally have access to Mount Silver, and the very final battle of the run. He leads with his Pikachu, and I lead with Axe. A Charm does nothing at all, and a single Earthquake takes the OHKO. Out comes Venusaur, and I switch to Teeth on a Solar Beam. Teeth's wing attacks are too much for the Grass type, and it falls. Next up is Espeon, so I switch to Night for the immunity once again, and hit a Crunch, OHKOing. Blastoise comes out, and so it's on to Magnet on a Rain Dance, who hits 100% accurate Thunder in the rain. Red goes with Snorlax, and let me tell you, this thing is a pain. I switch in Ghoul on an Amnesia, and so begins an incredibly long, drawn-out fight. We put Snorlax to sleep and waste some turns with Shadow Balls, and the plan is to waste all of Snorlax's PP so that it can no longer rest or do damage. So I switch between Ghoul and Magnet, forcing it to waste Body Slams. Once I'm finally confident it has used them all, I switch in Dragoon, who Dragon Rages before Whirlpooling for chip damage. Snorlax rests, and we switch into Night, who takes a hard snore. Back to switching we go, with Ghoul dealing some chip with Thief, until Snorlax begins to finally struggle. A combination of struggles and tri-attacks from Magnet leave Snorlax low, and so we switch to Axe to finally KO with Surf, leaving Red with just his Charizard. Flamethrower does very little, and Axe falls just shy of the KO with a Surf, before a second takes the kill, defeats Red, and wins us the run. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.